everyone. I hope you have
Yeah.
a nice day and a happy mood. Welcome to the new year of AI Testing Talks webinars. My name is Anna Maria Lukinam, and I am Exactpro's Global Marketing Director and Outreach Director for our AI testing education projects and CTFL courses. For those who has joined us for the first time, at these webinars, we explore artificial intelligence technology and invite many interesting companies to see their experience and listen to their stories in generative AI, agentic AI, and if they and how do they use AI-powered test tools. All our topics are going to be focused on software testing more and we would also like to see how everyone who are coming and discussing with us all these topics are overcoming challenges that occur when you work with such non-deterministic systems. And if you're not familiar with our webinars, do check out our AI testing talks of previous years. We are going to share it in the chat. All these videos are stored on Exactpro's YouTube channel. And if you're interested in software testing as a main subject, you're looking into ways of learning basics of software testing or ways of using AI-enabled tools and practical tips on generative AI, do follow Exactpro's new group called Software Testing Hub on LinkedIn and on Facebook for more materials on the topics. So going back to our webinar, co-hosting with me today is Exactpro's co-CEO and co-founder, active AI testing integrator, Yosif Itkin. Hi, Yosif.
Hello, everyone.
How are you today?
Not bad at all. Thank you.
Great. So today's topic is going to be shaped around agentic AI, which is very exciting. And I'm happy to welcome our guest, CEO and co-founder at Robonito, Aslam Khan. Aslam
Hi,
is a
Anna.
technology leader and AI practitioner with deep experience in software quality engineering, test automation, and AI-driven platforms. Hi, Aslam, and welcome.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks for the intro.
So while I see that you have already shared the slide deck and you're very ready to start, I will just quickly share a quick note with everyone who are listening us on LinkedIn live stream. Please do share your questions. Via chat on LinkedIn. And Joseph and I were also prepared a few questions for Aslam. And afterwards, or in the middle, we are going to go through the chat, live stream chat as well, and address a few questions from the audience, if there are any. Thank you very much for that. And I'm leaving the stage for you, Aslam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. So, hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Stop Writing Test Cases and How is AI Quietly Rewriting QA. So today we are going to basically talk about the agentic AI in the QA process. We are hearing a lot about vibe coding tools, but what about vibe testing? That's being ignored, but not with Robonito. With Robonito, we are already developing a vibe testing engine which can help you QA people to easily and scalably test their applications. So let me take you all through today's agenda, what we are going to discuss in this webinar. So why the traditional methods are not scalable and they are not they comprise of brittle scripts and they break every time and requires heavy maintenance. And then we discuss the quiet role that AI is playing in the QA industry and the shift that we are seeing these days, which is happening from traditional script-based tests to intent-based test. And we'll discuss about the topics like what to automate, what not to, because that's very important when we are automating any practice, any process within an organization. We must have to have a reason to automate that thing. Otherwise, we end up losing time and efforts unnecessarily. So with this AI shift, we'll see the productivity, speed, and confidence that it's bringing, and how the leading teams are adapting to it. So, a little about me. I'm Aslam Khan, co-founder of Robonito. I have more than 12 years of experience in driving digital transformation. I've worked with several geographies, including USA, Saudi Arabia, Canada, and India. That's in short me. I started my career as a software tester with Wipro Technologies. So let's coming back to the traditional way, because the traditional way of software testing is started with the manual testing processes where everything was manual. The scenarios were written step by step, and then a person sitting on the laptop executes them. Then comes the era when these things have been automated with the help of scripts. And I remember working on tools like HP, QTP, and scripts with Selenium. So writing sequential steps was the traditional way. But the problem with the sequential step was that they require a heavy maintenance. Every time there is a change in the application, you have to make change at hundreds of places. If the selectors are changed in a large number. So, giving an example here, let's consider that we have a checkout feature on a application, and that feature is somehow modified, and a new checkout feature is introduced with a feature flag on. Now what it does that with the traditional approach is that we have to write either two automation scripts to maintain that test case, or we have to add some conditional logics, adding some complexity to the test case, or we go with a hybrid approach. Anyways, the maintenance and the execution process becomes complex for such test cases. But we have to notice one thing, and that thing is the intent with the checkout feature is not changing in both the cases, whether we go with the new UI or the old UI. The intent is that the checkout should work as the business process is demanding. The user who are coming to our application should be able to check out their items. That's the intent, and that's the key point when we discuss about the agents, because they work mainly on the intent. Now, another scenario, whenever, especially in large applications, whenever a small hotfix is introduced, so that triggers a wave of regression suites being run. So what happens is most of the times these hotfix they don't understand what has changed, and relevant test signals are generated, meaning that the hotfix is affecting certain part of the application but not all. But still we are running all regression suites, or all the test cases that are present in a regression suite. So that's an unnecessary time being consumed, because it's a tiny change, but it's disproportionate execution triage, and the result is that the time is spent on noise, not risk aware decisions, and QA people get tangled in such things. So the shift that is happening nowadays with the advent of GPT, initially the GPT started where things got interesting, and then we are seeing the agentic AI and the MCP servers all over the places. So that shift has given a new power to the QA industry. And that shift is intent-based QA. Like I said, with the checkout example, that we are not anymore deciding on the sequential steps of a process. We are deciding on the business intent. We are making sure, we have to make sure that the intent is fulfilled by the application. So what is intent-driven testing, and what is the human and AI handoff here? So instead of focusing on the QA part, or writing the script part, the QA has to define the intent. The role of the QA is changing, and we are not saying that when we are introducing the agentic AI, we are replacing QAs. We are just redefining the roles. So many people come up with question, is AI going to replace QA? So that's the answer for them. No, AI is not going to replace you. It's just going to replace the responsibilities and the roles that a QA has to play in the testing process within an organization. So the humans are going to define the intent, and AI is basically going to generate the test cases, run those test cases with auto healing features, with self flow generation, and ultimately generates the result of those test cases with the noises being suppressed, because many of the times there are so many test cases which may look like they are failing, but they are not actually affecting any business process. So that noise is being suppressed by the intent driven testing, and this loops kind of repeats itself. So how AI agents work, let's have a look. So AI agents are basically working on top of LLMs. So LLMs are very good at understanding structured and unstructured data. And whenever we talk about HTML, it's highly unstructured and it's different on every application we visit. So LLMs are good at it. So instead of hard-coded selectors, if we define the element or the target in a right way with the right intent, LLMs can easily detect what we are trying to target, and it does not affect whether you change a UI layout or you introduce a new button or you introduce a new step within the flow. These AI agents or the LMs are capable of understanding that. So they detect a change, they regenerate the path, and they adapt as per the new flow. They can rerun the variations with different types of data sets, and ultimately helps you flag the real race. So that's the AI execution that usually we talk about in the industry. So when these AI agents are deployed, they bring with them the productivity, speed, and confidence. And why? Because instead of focusing on mundane tasks like writing scripts, maintaining scripts, deciding on what to execute, what not to execute, the shift becomes that the QA is focused on high level judgmental thing. And I will quote here that AI will automate routine work so human can focus on higher level judgment. This said by Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google. So the productivity will come automatically when AI starts writing the test cases, because now humans does not have to get stuck in that loop. And obviously this will lead to faster speed in terms of execution, because if test cases are generated quickly, they can be executed faster as well with ready-made or predefined infrastructure. And this will bring the confidence, because now we are not talking about how many test cases we have executed. We are talking about the risk awareness and the coverage around the business process or the business intent which we have to save. So ultimately, agentic shift will bring all these three things: productivity, speed, and confidence to any process in an organization. So let's compare the shift in practice, because previously, when we were writing test cases, we were basically talking about hundreds of handwritten step scripts, version handling, and regression approach. But with the AI-driven in QA, what we are talking about is the intent, because intent covers a lot of things in itself. Hence, we don't have to maintain those hundreds of scripts every time. We are talking about context-aware execution, which is basically important when it comes to speed of releases. And the regression approach, we control the regression suites, because many of the times when applications go bigger, these regression suites grow exponentially. I have seen regression suites which comprise of test case like 100,000, 200,000 even, for very bigger applications. So, the intent-driven test casing is saving us the number of test cases as well, by selectively executing the things which needs to be executed and save us from the disaster that may happen on the user end. So ultimately, the noise is suppressed and we get a better outlook of our testing practices. And the coverage matrix changes from test count to measured by the behavior and the number of risks that we are covering. So that's the shift in practice which we are going to see in which is happening in fact, and we are going to see becoming more common in the future. So let's have a, since we talk about this agentic QA, let's have a quick demo around how Robonito is implementing the agentic QA and helping organizations to generate test cases quickly. So let me share my screen here. So yeah, Robonito, by the way, is a desktop application. Anybody can go to robonito.com, download it. It's free to use. You get a free trial version with Robonito, and once you are there, you can start creating your test cases with it, and it's very simple. So to demonstrate the intent-based test case here, let me just record a test case on this website. and let's launch it. So once we launch the test case, what's happening here is we have our AI agent here, Robonito AI assistant. And instead of, going through the traditional way of creating scripts, what we will do, we will define an intent, and we will say that the intent here is to add bolt cutter to the cart and see whether the bolt cutter is being added to the cart or not. So I'll just define the intent here. So I'll say add bolt cutter to the cart and assert. So this is just an intent I'm passing to the AI agent, and what AI agent will do is it went to the bolt cutter page. It finds how it needs to add this item to the cart. So it finds a path. So it's determining the flow. It clicked on the button and it added to the cart. When the product is added, it has to now determine whether it's actually existing in the cart. So that's where the assertion comes in. So it will automatically try to assert as well and find again a path to navigate to the cart and see if the item is appearing in the cart. So here, instead of going through the steps one by one and recording a test case, what we did is we defined an intent, and that intent is fulfilled by the AI agent. So that's one simple test case. Another test case that we can have a look at, say for example, we are on, we'll again launch it. And let's say, for example, we are on this page and we want to generate different type of test cases and see uh, and save us some time from thinking. Like, for example, I can come to this page and directly ask the AI agent to suggest some of the best test cases which are actually applicable here. So AI agent again will analyze the application, its components, and based on that can come up with different types of test cases that are applicable to the current application. And once it generates the test cases, the human comes in, the human judgment comes in. And if they like the approach, or if the approach is correctly generated by the AI, they can then pass it on to another agent, which will now automate and discover the flows which are needed in order to carry out or execute those test cases. Like, for example, here we are seeing that our AI agent generated multiple test cases like verify product details, display, add product to the cart functionality, increase and decrease the product quantity. And these are all high priority test cases which automatically the AI agent marked as. And then we have, add product to the favorites with medium priority, because I mean, that's how the QAs will have assigned the priorities. So you can see that now if I want to automate any of the test case, I just need to, select the test case and save it. And once I save it, I'm saving the intent, not the script or the steps. And once I save the intent with me, I can execute the same thing anytime. So once it's saved, I can go back and execute the same test case. So that's a small demo or scenario using Robonito, which anybody can execute easily without the need of going through those lengthy test scripts or writing test scripts or maintaining those test scripts. Even if something in future changes on this page, Robonito can automatically detect the path and the flow and the things that have been changed and make sure that the test case works in all the scenarios. So like I save this card here. Now, since we have the description here, I can just record it and I can do the start recording, and I can automate this part as a test case. So moving back to our presentation. So this was a little demonstration how agentic QA works. Now, why test cases previously why test cases work, because with the traditional script method, because uh, there were the speed of development was not that high, in terms that there were monthly or quarterly releases usually with the applications with the medium sized teams, we assume. And there were usually most of the time single versions of the applications running at times. But now with AI and the speed of development that has been introduced with the help of these vibe coding tools, there are parallel versions, there are multiple hot fixes, feature flags, and multiple iterations, alpha beta tests for the user behavior and user driven testing going on. So this adds up to a very high complexity in the testing environment. Hence, the traditional way of writing those scripts and maintaining those scripts become a separate project and effort in itself for the organizations, and they have to maintain heavy resources for that as well, which obviously is a big cost for companies. So why the modern software is breaking the test case model? Because like we discussed, parallel versions and hot fixes are there. Multiple versions for the different user segments are being run. For example, I may be running an application in different regions, and I may have different user scenarios for those regions. So I have to maintain a very big regression suite. I have to cover up so many scenarios in my test cases, which is again may have the same intent but different execution path. So it's a redundancy that has been introduced again in the testing process. So, again, we are seeing with the advent of AI, the agentic stack, especially the non-deterministic behavior is being introduced into the application as well. Because unlike traditional applications which work on simple logics, if and else conditions, now we have LLMs which analyze the input, and based on that gives a certain output which can not be exactly determined every time. So writing test cases again for such type of applications is very complex. And Robonito as well does that with the help of its agent to agent testing, which we'll see. So that's the hidden cost of script-based testing, because most of the time when we are running script-based testing, the QA spend is on fixing and maintaining those scripts, and ultimately debugging the flaky test and running those regressions all the time, just because they are not sure what impact any other change may or may not have. So it does not as well give that level of confidence to the testers or the teams when releasing their application. So the KPIs or the metrics that are going to change for the test coverage from are basically the test case count and the coverage percentage. Because test case count and coverage, we may write hundreds and thousands of test cases, but still we might be missing some critical business logics. So that's not giving us the idea of what risk these test case or test count are covering. So the actual metrics that the organizations should practice at this stage should be the risk exercise. So we should be knowing the goal behind testing the applications. We should be knowing that the application is developed, for example, for ABC function or to cater XYZ need of the user. Is it actually fulfilling that? Is it actually helping the users to do what they are supposed to do? So that shift is going to change with the intent-based testing. And the goal is to raise the level of abstraction at which human work, said by Jensen Huang. And that's exactly right, because instead of focusing on deep down things or low level things like writing code, QA should focus on more business goals rather than the things which can be handled by machine. And this metric, which is coverage, I think it's nowadays it's a misleading metrics, because confidence and risk awareness should be the primary thing that the businesses should decide on. Like high risk, what are the high risk test cases that have been executed, what are the impact analysis of changes that an organization is doing, and ultimately track the speed of their shipping and no shipping features. So that's the thing that should be tracked in an organization. So the QA's goal is not to maximize the coverage, it's to maximize the confidence and release decisions. So this comes to an interesting point now, which is the test orchestration. Because when we talk about making or taking a decision about what to test or what not to test, the important thing comes about orchestration. Because whenever test cases are developed, there might be several environments where they have to run those test cases. Now, if the application is bigger and the environments are complex, or running the test case in itself becomes challenging, and at the moment most of the organizations handle this process manually. but that is going to change with the help of AI. Why? Because AI will help in orchestration, identifying which tests to run in which environment easily. So, because we are talking about AI, and we've been using AI already, sometimes we don't realize it because we are too lost in this agentic AI discussion. We have been using AI in our QA stack already with the help of self-healing locators or self-healing features in any tool or smart wait times and all those things. So this analysis becomes easy for failure and clustering to determine the failures in the clustering and analysis. So similar failures groups together when it comes to identifying what test to orchestrate in an environment. So how basically that's going to work from assistance to orchestration is basically previously humans chose what to run and what to manage within the test suites, but with the new approach you define your process with the help of QA, and those QA basically helps you to identify different intents or different environments where you have to run, and AI agents will automate that selection criteria for the test cases which needs to run in a particular environment. So that's once that orchestration is automated, the speed of execution, the speed of releases automatically increases for any organization. So in a way, the future in the near future, execution is not going to be the problem because there are several tools and technologies solving it. But orchestration is going to become a bottleneck because is still mostly manual. It is very complex. It is very hard to take the judgment on what to automate, what not to automate, what to run, and select different environments and the priorities of running the test cases. But with a proper feedback loop mechanism, a proper analysis, and proper setup, this is possible with the help of agentic AI. And this area, agentic AI, is going to change and going to affect very in a big way. So instead of the chaos, the system first, understand the context, version flags, environment, then it analyzes the change, not just to commit, but the behavioral impact. From there, it select the right intent, not every test case. So this is how this whole test orchestration works. And test ops is the real bottleneck, especially when it comes to bigger applications. And like I said, execution, when it comes to execution and orchestration, we have to understand what is execution and what is orchestration. Execution is a simple process where you have a set of test cases defined in your different test suites, like regression suite or your smoke suite. You can just select those test cases and execute. But when it comes to orchestration, it's more of a priority. It's more of identifying the business risk. It's more of to give velocity to your testing process. So you have several environments, what test case to prioritize in which environments, especially say, for example, you have something running in your staging, and then you have to prioritize some test cases on your production. So these all interpretations it can become very hard to manage manually because there could be different versions, different flags, different environments. And ultimately, for the orchestration part, AI agents are going to change it by self-prioritizing and self-deciding the criteria for which test cases to execute. And this is how, compared to the traditional method, the maintenance with AI-driven or intent plus orchestration goes. So as we see, if we are using the traditional methods, the more complex the application becomes, the more hard it becomes to maintain the test cases. But with intent-based approach, it's fairly easy because we are testing the intents. We are not dependent on the sequential steps of the test scripts. We are not dependent on the selectors or the underlying technology or underlying things of a test case. We are testing whether the application is serving the business or not. So that is why AI reduces the maintenance, because intent survives the change and execution regenerates and paths are recalculated, flows are not breaking. So your test set or test suite becomes more robust to execute. So the important question now is, what should we automate and why? So there are different categories, and there could be more from what I have listed here, but the primary ones are stable business critical flows. They are must to automate, because and these are the simple example for such flows is like your checkout, your payments, your maybe booking systems, or booking intent for some hotel logic or for a flight logic. So these are the business critical flows which should always be automated. And regression across changes, your regression switch should as well be automated, because then only you will be able to ship things faster. And high variation scenarios where there are lot of combinations, which usually if a manual person starts doing, he may miss, or he may escape or miss some steps. So these scenarios are a must to automate along with the API test cases. Now, what we should not automate, that's very important, because if we know what not to automate, obviously we'll be knowing what to automate. So the early feature discovery, for example, when we are starting to write an application at the initial phase, there are so many explorations going on that sometimes even teams are not sure with which variation they go for the final release. So at this stage, it's risky to directly go with the automation practice. UX and usability and emotions, because AI or agentic AI is not connected to the physical world. So you cannot automate the usability and the emotional aspect related to the applications. And ambiguous requirements. Many of the times businesses come with requirements where they are even not clear. They are into the experimentation mode. So it's become very hard for it becomes almost impossible to automate those requirements, because it will create a bigger ripple effect when things are keeps on changing, and it will stuck the QAs into that unending maintenance loop. And the business trade-off, definitely shipping decisions like whether to ship an application with a minor defect or not to ship it. This is something which is in control of humans, and QAs must own it. And here we discuss like human versus AI responsibilities. So humans own the intent, and AI owns the execution paths, because that's the shift from script to intent. Previously, humans or QAs used to write those scripts. Now AI is going to own that process. AI is going to write the scripts, do the test selection criteria, prioritization, and healing, and refixing, and maintenance of the test cases. So these all things are now being shifted towards the AI path, because these are the things which can be easily now automated. And when it comes to human part, uh, the intent, the risk boundaries, acceptance criteria, the business context, and all those things, this becomes part and accountability of the QA teams. And this will help the teams to ship better and ship faster. So let's talk about what is going to change next in this software industry, and that is agent to agent testing, because we are seeing that every application now is implementing agent one way or the another, but we don't have a concrete way to test the output of these agents. For example, even if we say give any input to ChatGPT or any other LLMs, we may not be 100% sure what output it will give us uh, every time we are giving because the output is not going to be the same. So that makes it difficult to write automated scripts for these agent testing. So what we have to test with the agentic system is basically the output of that AI agent, which we'll discuss in a slide or two. So the traditional software, they were very, with simple if-else criteria, okay, but the AI systems, they have non-deterministic and variability with them. So traditional software works on simple logics. They have a simple flow. With AI systems, they have a range of output. They have a boundary based on validations versus allowed versus forbidden. So that type of systems are going to be prevalent in the near future. And we are already seeing that every site is, implementing one way or the other AI chatbots or AI systems. So how these systems will be tested is basically based on data validation, based on prompt or input testing, based on output boundary testing. And with Robonito, what we have done is we have already developed something like this, which basically determines and evaluates the output of AI agents in terms of fluency, coherence, factuality, and toxicity for the LLM output. So, so all these things can only be automated again with intent thing, and the intent here is being evaluated by another agent. So that's why this agent to agent testing is an interesting concept that is now evolving everywhere. So, as part of the conclusion, how agentic AI shifts QA from script to intent, we have seen that you know from writing script to strategic trust and governance to the AI, because AI is now functions. AI is going to function as the executor. Human layer or the QA layer is going to manage the trust and function, the intent, the business processes. So that is going to be more prevalent in the software testing industry. And how Robonito can help with these things, as we have already shown that Robonito is working on intent-based test execution, and we can as well help with test orchestration, where we can form a feedback loop of your test suites back into your system and help you identify test cases which should be automated and should not be. So all those features we have already, we are already covering with Robonito. If anybody wants a trial for the product, they can go to the site, download it, and use it and leave a feedback. So thank you. Back to you, Anna.
Thank you, Aslam. It was very interesting. Thank you very much for the presentation. So far, we've been receiving a couple of questions. We can slowly move to our Q&A section, and while everyone who are listening to us will compile a few more questions for us, I will start with one. So you've been showing us a demo, which is very nice. Thank you very much. It was very interesting to see how Robonito actually works. And you've been showing how it works on the web page. My question is, is it really possible to use it in production on more complex systems, which are not GUI based, but has some more complexity and functionality behind how it works? And just to, if you could emphasize, you mentioned that human is going to check all the tests that Robonito produces and to decide on the logic and whether it goes moving on with this logic or not. If human is going to be able to process all these tests that Robonito produces when the functionality is increasingly high. Thank you.
Yeah, so with Robonito, especially, we are covering the web applications, we are covering the mobile applications, and then for the backend complex logic, we have API testing inbuilt into the platform. So users can use the API testing features to test more complex functionalities from there. And not only that, like I mentioned, that we have as well a module where you can even test the agentic systems with non-deterministic output. So AI Robonito in a way can test the LLMs as well, and the quality of the output which an LLM is giving in a open as well as a closed space. Yeah.
In case of very complex logic, is it possible to maybe you have some examples of the test reports, test execution reports with you, so you could see who could show how it looks like, and it is even more interesting when it comes to testing AI-based systems, how you can trace what is covered in terms of testing, what is not with your test execution report, if you have any with you.
So
you
at
know,
the
to show.
moment, I think I don't have because most of the complex reports are only being generated at the client's end. Usually, we are under the NDAs not to share those publicly. Yep.
Sure.
Okay. But I'll ask team to have some dummy report created based on the similar type of trend and have it shared with the people who are attending today's webinar. Second thing is Robonito, because you are talking about the complex scenarios. So Robonito has as well a feature where if you want to handle very complex scenarios, because we know there could be some edge case scenarios, right? Robonito has a feature where you can export these generated test case as a code as well, so that if you want to modify something which is really really intricate to your logics only, okay, so you can always modify the test cases generated by Robonito as per your business logics or per your requirement.
Thank
Hmm.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So before we go into more complex topics, let's clarify for the audience some simple technical aspects. So the first one, can you please share what do you use to interpret the natural language? So if somebody is providing intent in English. So, what do you use to interpret it? Do you use particular LLM, or can you configure what to use, etc.?
So yeah, Robonito works with different set of LLMs, not one. Okay, so you in the back end you can configure different set of LLMs, like you can use Gemini, you can use GPT, Claude, you can even use Llama and DeepSeek. So Robonito supports multiple LLMs, both publicly hosted as well as if you want them to be hosted on your premise for data privacy, we have the option to host on-premise LLMs as well, specifically.
Okay. What do you use to interpret what is currently on the screen?
So that's basically an algorithm which we have developed internally. Okay, so that's basically the IP which Robonito has, which we've been developing for years. Um we took inspiration from some of the open source tools, but largely it's our own algorithm which our engineers have developed.
Is it more applicable to particular web development framework, say
No, no.
React? No.
So yeah. So Robinito absolutely does not depend on the underlying technology because it's working on top of the browser layer. So Robinito automatically identify different elements. So the good thing with Robinito is that it doesn't fail even when it comes to the scenarios where you have complex DOM structures like iframes within iframes within iframes. I've seen complex scenarios, especially with products like SAP. They have, especially the traditional ones, they have iframe nesting of up to 10 to 12 levels. So even in at that level of complexity of DOM, Robonito works perfectly.
Okay, we have one question from the audience. Is it possible to record the output from the generated code, say as Selenium or Playwright script, something like that, or it is necessary to keep everything up? So precise question would be, does it provision any test runnable Selenium in the background once you have defined the intent?
So yeah, I mean, if you want to, once the intent is defined and you want it to be exported, you can export the test cases as Playwright. So we gave that option. So you can export your test cases, whichever has been generated by Robonito in as a Playwright code, and you can download it, run it. But if you want to, when it comes to running on the background for Robonito, Robonito saves it in its own format and executes it every time.
If we will export it as a Playwright or Selenium script, what will it use to interpret what is currently in the browser, in the screen?
So yeah, so as long as you are within the Robonito environment, it will interpret everything. But when you go out, we export the code in such a way that it starts again, there the dependence, because we are exporting, we are not vendor locking in anybody. Okay, so that's why we have given this feature to give more liberty, more control over the output of Robonito. So that way, once you are exporting the code, now you have the control. So the execution goes from Robonito to that particular framework. So if that framework is supporting, auto healing and auto flow detection, then it's good. Otherwise, it falls back to the traditional, selector mechanism.
Sorry, not sure about selector mechanism. We expect that there is something that will be adapting to the changes in selector when using Robonito. What is
Yeah,
this something?
Yeah, so when you are using Robonito, when you are defining the intent, the LLM takes over, it analyzes the DOM, it matches your intent with the DOM and see what flow or path it has to take in order to fulfill that intent. Okay, so it generated multiple paths and it selects the best path which should satisfy that intent. And once that happens, you get a series of steps as a test case, and you can use those test cases to, as part of your regression suite, as part of your initial testing for the application, and however you want to use that. Yeah.
Do you use LLM during intense scenarios creation
I mean,
or during
LLMs.
execution?
No, both parts are using LLMs behind the scene, because when you are once you give the intent goes to the LLM part. LLM interprets it, and along with the context. So the context of the application is very important here. Along with the application context, it interprets it and generates a path. It sends back the path back to us, and as we proceed within the application, it keeps on sending the request to the LLM and see whether it's doing or following the correct path or not. And that's how we are solving the challenge of moving away from CSS selectors.
So, do you see do you have any concerns with the cost component involved if for any click during test execution I need to involve external LLM to interpret DOM or to interpret my intent?
I didn't get the question. Can you repeat that?
Sure.
Sorry.
So as I understand, you are using LLM to interpret both the DOM model during test execution.
Yeah.
So do you think there are any cost considerations with doing so? Say if I need to use LLM, then any processing request is actually requires either
Got it.
substantial hardware capacity or paying to external provider. Do
So
you have
yeah,
anything in relation to usage?
yes, like for example, I said we are behind the scenes, we are using multiple LLMs like GPT, Claude, and Gemini, right? So it incurs definitely a cost whenever you are making a call to LLMs, but that cost is not that high. Okay, and if you have the capability to host the infrastructure yourself, that cost you can cut drastically. I mean, uh, I can say very easily 10 times you can cut that cost when you are using the self-hosted LLM.
Thank you. And
Okay.
now I think we need to go to the central idea, and I believe our audience would like to better understand the concept of intent. So a few things. Let's start with example. In your example, you say checkout must succeed.
Yes.
Well, would it be okay if checkout succeeds with negative number of items in the
No, so
cart?
yes. So here comes the business part. So intent must as well follow the business logics, right? So if I'm saying that the checkout should work, it means that I'm asking to validate all the scenarios. Like it should not work with the negative type of numbers. It should assert that the price of the item which has been added to the cart remains same, and that's what I show, or I can even show now, that whenever you are adding an item to the cart, if it's of price $12, then the cart should show you $12. It should not be like 20 or $200 there. So it should always validate with the business intent, and it should not generate any negative impact when we talk about the intent.
What is the difference between intent and full requirement specification? So if I have like 10 PDF documents that describe what is required from my application, what is the difference between intent and requirement specification?
So your requirement specification will serve as a knowledge base for the intent. Okay. So whatever intent you are defining along with your requirement document, the LLMs, if you are passing both to the LLM will make sure that whatever has been specified, the intent should not go out of that boundary. So a closed execution happens in that case, where the target is to satisfy the intent within the business boundaries.
Do you expect a software tester to review every scenario produced by after specify intent? Do you expect a software tester to review every scenario?
Yeah, I think it's good initially, especially when you are writing the test cases for the first time. It's always the best practice to review those things because especially for example, you are generating your test cases right from a small text. Okay, AI may hallucinate sometimes, in the sense that it may generate your application may have multiple path for that thing. It may take an alternative path which you are not intending to do so. So again, it's part of that human in the loop agentic testing, where you refine your intent as well. So as you move or start testing with Robonito, it's not like that you gave it a prompt for the first time or the intent the first time. And I will say that intent is basically an equivalent of prompt. So just like you do prompt refining with other AI tools, you have to do the similar thing with Robonito. It may happen that the intent which you are passing on may not cover the full context. So you may have to, second time, if it's not generating the right output, you may have to reiterate, rethink about your prompt which you are giving to the LLM, and fix it with the right intent, what you are asking it to do, and then only it will work. Because see, context is everything. LLMs works on context. So if your context is not right, LLM may not give the correct answer. So you have to make sure, and it's always a good practice to always first check your test cases which are generated by the AI. At least, I mean, as a QA, you can do that if not writing the test cases.
Thank you, Aslam. Just to clarify about the intents and how you write them. If, for example, you submitted the intent and it was preserved and the task was executed, that's one of the questions that we received from the chat right now. But because of some bug within the system, the extra steps have been taken by the system. So the question is, since the flow and steps required should be identified by the agent, so you are prompting in, how do you identify that bug in the middle? Should you indicate the full prompt or the full intent of what you want to do for the system to be able to then identify that bug and to create the test and identify the bug, or you could see it even when the system did those extra steps, even though you didn't ask it.
Great question, because there's a very thin boundary between it. Say, for example, a step is introduced, and the flow changes in a way for the
Mhm.
application. But sometimes what it may happen that AI just executed and never notified the QA, and it may end up in resulting a false positive, right? So that's a very thin line which we are executing with very caution with Robonito. So we always, first, alert the users whenever an auto heal or self correction flow happens. So we always tell users that here the auto heal feature or auto feel feature gets activated and automatically fix the flow. So you have to as well ascertain that whether it's actually intended or it's a false positive. So we don't always, throw up the exceptions. Okay, this is changed, or we don't always, try to execute the thing if it's changed. So it's you can say, for example, in a login button, the position of the login form has changed. So here it's not affecting anything. So Robonito will never care about whether login screen is appearing on top, in the middle, or on the bottom. Okay, it will, because it's not affecting the business. But if the flow is changing, Robonito will affect in two ways. Either it fails the test case, or it will alert you that some auto healing or auto fixing happened in this process, and you may have to check it.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand how it decides what matters and what does not matter for the business. Say,
Like,
position of login can probably be, say, if I have a designer who has particular view on what is required from login screen, and then controls moved somewhere that is outside of the visible area, etc.
correct.
How it decides that it is important or not important?
So that's what I said in the slides as well. I mean, that's where the human judgment comes in deciding what's matter for the business or not. So this is something that the agent will not decide. This is something a business decision, a QA has to take up this. So this governance thing is always part of the human. So that's why, these agents should not be 100% autonomous for now, because there is a physical world, and then there is, the software thing, software component. So whenever changes and things are just affecting the software parts, the agent can think around it. But if it's something related to the physical world, so agent has no control there. Obviously, the QA has to dive, or the team has to dive in there and decide on whether to keep it or to reject it.
Well, then we probably need a little bit clarification on the distinction between a signal and noise. So if you're saying that on every change locator or every something, we need to involve software tester. So where is the line between what you consider to be a signal and to be a noise, and especially for noise suppression?
Correct. So it's very simple. Like, for example, I gave an example where a component has moved on a page. If we go with the traditional script-based execution, it may fail because the selector is now broken. Okay. So, but with the agent, it will not fail. So in a way, you are suppressing the noise. Okay. You're suppressing the noise in the sense that you are not throwing a false positive. Okay. The login form has changed, but it's not changing the flow at all. It's same. The intent is same, that the user should be able to log in, correct? But when it comes to noise, I mean, these types of false positive where the flow has changed, these has to be identified, or the QA or the team must be alerted when such scenarios are happening, because there is a thin boundary in this type of scenario.
Well, so we are trying to understand the distinction, what is considered to be a change in scenario versus what is considered to be a technical change. And wouldn't it be easier for a development team just introduce stable names for locators instead of using LLM every single time when we are pressing any single button in our test execution?
So first thing is, LLMs does not, or the way Robonito has implemented LLMs, it doesn't work that way, that we are calling LLMs on every execution. Like I said, it's a human in the loop agent. So first, the humans are going to create a test case. Once the test case is created and finalized by the human, and here notice one thing, that humans are not writing any script, they are not writing any code, they are just overseeing the process, they are just governing the business rules. Once Robonito generates that test case and it's been finalized by the QA, and since the test case is finalized by the QA now, Robonito saves it in a format that it doesn't have to call the LLM every time. Now, if a button is changed, Robonito will automatically trigger an algorithm which will identify where that button is on the page. Has it only changed its position, or after clicking on that button, something new is completely coming up? So in that case, it will identify that something is breaking here because it has changed. It doesn't know about the context because the intent was not present. Hence, the QA team will be able to manage things easily because it's not creating a pile of failures for you. Okay, it's exactly highlighting what is the problem with the application now at this stage.
Important. So am I hearing it right that you cache fixed locators or something like that, and you involve LLM or more complex processing only if there is a difference between what was recorded previously?
Yeah, that's exactly the case. So you don't need to invoke LLMs all the time. So LLMs only invoke when the script breaks. So a script in the sense the steps which at the time of creating a test case have been saved. If there is any variation in that, then an LLM is invoked, and that LLM will identify, okay, what was the flow previously, what is the flow now, is there any step that LLM can do in order to mitigate or fix or auto heal or auto generate the flow. If all these things LLM is not able to answer, then it will result into a failure and identify or alert the user that this is not working. You have to look into it.
And how is domain model from specification is linked to the UI controls in the application? So we have some documents that describe this is what we expect from our payment system. And then there is actual web interface. So your system have to be able to link these two together.
So
How
yeah,
it
we
will
have
be able to do it?
Yes, so we have we are coming up with this feature very soon where you can upload your requirement documentations and specifications, and that you can store as a context for your application. And whenever now you are invoking your LLMs, that gets the intent basically, that document serves as a knowledge base for the intent and helps you execute and generate the test cases as per your specification and in that close context only. Currently, Robonito, in order to do that currently with Robonito, you just have to take that requirement specification, pass it on to Robonito agent, and it will do that. So we are coming up with a way where you can even save such things within Robonito.
Thank you, Aslam. Just a quick question. I think we have not touched it upon. Does the Robonito tool look at the system as a whole and maybe create a test plan for what's supposed to be done against the system, what should be checked, or anything
No,
similar?
No, currently we are not doing that because applications sometimes are very complex. So the way we are doing it is you can integrate different tools like Jira, and if you have your stories well defined in Jira, you can first use those stories to generate some of the test cases. And based on the test cases generated through your Jira stories, which is basically serving as your one of the specific requirement specification, you can then use your actual application URL. Now combine these generated test cases with this URL and actually generate the test cases which are executable units. That's how Robonito does that.
You've been also claiming that I wrote it down. Fixing generated test cases is easier than fixing handcrafted test cases overall when you've been talking about the Robonito features.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that a bit more? Why is it so?
So say for example, you have a script where you have 10 selectors for an application. Okay. So when you are doing it with the script-based approach, you change the UI for the application, and every component is there. It's just that it's a rearrange. So now redoing that test case manually, you have to make the changes at 10 places, save your script, run it. With Robonito, it's again, like I said, intent. You will say, make sure that checkout is working. And if the UI for the checkout is changing in the script scenario, you have to go and make the changes. With Robonito, it will automatically detect because the intent is there with Robonito.
It's actually the first place where I do agree. It is easier to fix generated scripts than handcrafted
Yeah.
from, I would say, overall
And
experience.
and yeah, and
Okay.
you don't have to find and go and find the selectors in the application, then update those selectors at particular places. I mean, it's intent. It's one click fixing with such tools like Robonito.
Yeah, so
So,
before you continue with your complex question, can I ask one from one of our listeners about the security issues? So
Mhm.
one of the questions that we received, can you say a few words about security itself? And I have sensitive information and data in my software, and is it safe to use Robonito? I remember that you mentioned that LLM can be stored on your premises, but anything else that you could add to that?
That's one, and Robonito is, SOC 2 certified, so data security is 100%, there, and it's there, yeah. And for sensitive data, we are doing, and we have done this in the past with a few of our clients. We have hosted, in-house LLMs, where they don't worry about, sending their data outside their premise.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
thank you. Well, we have question from proponents of modern software engineering who are very fond of feature flags. So the question, what is the difference between a feature flag and regular application configuration setting? Say, if you have a complex enterprise software, you have hundreds of different configurations. And in traditional software testing, we already have to work with it. So what difference it makes to have one additional checkbox for a feature flags from a software testing perspective?
So again, it depends. See, many times what happens is, applications are being tested with different set of peoples, like alpha beta testing for certain features. Okay. And whenever that is being done, it adds a load, or it adds a responsibility for the QA to handle that thing. And if it's, missed, it really impacts the regression suites, or your testing process. And I 100% agree that when it comes to enterprise applications, you have to be extra cautious and and make sure that you have a coverage in all those scenarios. Again, I will say that if the intent is covering the flow, it will cover those branches as well, not just, path A to B. Okay, so if you have a feature flag, like I have to, if I'm selecting, say for example, size 10 in a shopping cart, okay, then I should be getting a size 10 shoe in my shopping cart. But if I'm selecting a size 8 shoe, I should be getting a size 8 shoe with black color in the shopping cart. So these are, you can say, the branches or the feature flags, you can say. Okay, so this, Robonito or any LLM can handle well.
Yes, but do you see a difference between this approach and, say, standard data-driven testing, where we have a single scenario and then a huge Excel with different parameters that cover different execution paths? So what is the difference between this new approach and standard data-driven or keyword-driven testing?
I mean, Robonito as well supports keywords driven testing. We have an option to connect different data sources, and that's part of your coverage as well, because you as well have to, when it comes to testing, you as well have to report like what types of, data sets we have tested the application on. And there are, extreme negatives as well, like for example, giving totally invalid inputs and all those things. So Robonito or any driven testing, I think they are similar. They are not too different. The only thing is, when you are doing it manually, you have to write code, you have to maintain that code, and that code, reading data from those files. and if your data format is changing, again, an update is required in your test scripts. But with Robonito, if you want to even change the data at any particular moment, you just upload that new data set and plug it into Robonito. So it's very fast. It's one click plug and play kind of thing with Robonito. With your own scripts, it's again a small development activity to integrate that data set and to run it.
Thank you very much. There was a slide that surprised a viewer related to comparison between script-heavy and AI-driven practices. In particular, it says fewer intent-based validations. So how it is possible that in more advanced modern techniques, we will do fewer validations in comparison to what people were able to do with their own manual hands?
No, I think again, it comes as a responsibility of QA to see that the business logics are satisfied. And when it comes to, scenarios which has validations and all those things, these are part of your, you know, business requirements as well. That certain inputs are valid, certain things are valid with the application, and it should work in that domain only. So when we are talking about, agentic approach, we have to, again, it all comes to the prompt or the intent. We have to well define it, and it will work. Unlike, with other traditional tools, you have to, pass on different types of data set to cover those scenarios and all those things. So I say agentic AI is making this process as well very easy.
But do you think English language has a certain degree of ambiguity that probably affects vibe coding, but any coding? So there are people who believe that structured language give better control of conveying intent rather than expressing
Again,
intent
it
in
all comes
English.
to, it all comes to effort when you are uh, it's it's good that you are thinking of, defining a structure as an input or as an intent. But again, it's effort. And these days LLMs are advancing at a very rapid speed, and they are in a stage where it doesn't matter. They understand English very, very well, until or unless it's an ambiguous thing. And even us as a humans, we sometimes even fail to identify a few of the scenarios which are ambiguous. So there are always limitations to things. So I think, yeah, even with plain language, or you do use the structural approach, both are equally good. It all depends on the scenarios and the efforts you want to put in. But I will say a mix of both will be the best thing.
Totally agree. What what is the problem with running everything? So assuming that execution itself is highly optimized, why would we involve additional model to select a subset instead of running everything? So if humans are involved, I can understand that prioritization can be very important because we do have cost and time component involved. But if we have unattended execution, why do we need to care so much about orchestration instead of just running and not taking any risk that our model have incorrectly identified areas of applications that were affected by a small insignificant change from areas of application that were not affected by them?
Yeah, so again, when it comes to orchestration, it's very important. See, sometimes, organizations and development teams, they are in hurry to ship releases, okay? And if you have bigger regression suites, it take time to execute. I mean, I've seen regression suites running for a whole day. And sometimes, to propagate the hot fixes, they don't have that much of time leverage, because many industries have SLAs, very strict SLAs. Even a minute, an hour cost millions, especially in the industries like finance and banking, right? So better test orchestration will lead to faster, releases. Why? Because if you know your change has impact on particular areas of the application only, you will be more confident to ship it rather than shipping a hotfix and seeing 10 other things falling apart. So again, I will not say that 100% leave it to the AI part. I said that AI is going to work better in this field as well. And as we are seeing more and more, such tools are coming in the market as well with better orchestration schemes. So a mix of at this stage, I think a mix of both is the best combination. And humans are the best to decide on the business aspects, like I said, which includes the physical world. And when it comes to the software aspect, I think some analysis done by the AI because LLMs are good at the analysis part. So in that case, LLMs can suggest a better path, a better plan as well, which again depends on you whether to execute or not.
Thank you. Controversial question. How do you measure confidence?
Yeah, it's totally a human judgment.
Totally. So you're not measuring it, you assess confidence.
So I will say, how do you measure confidence is basically, again, this is a governance practice basically. Okay. If you like in my talk, I said that the more risk coverage you are doing, that you know that these 10 are my super critical business process and I've covered them. Okay, this obviously gives you more confidence to ship a release rather than, you don't know first, you don't know what are the most, critical components, you don't know what risk is associated if each one of the components fail. So again, it's more of a human decision deciding on the confidence rather than the machine, because machine will give you the metric, the stats only. Okay, you have to interpret them. Machine can give you a recommendation, but ultimately it's the human who has to decide on the confidence part.
Thanks, Aslam. I have another. I am conscious about the time, so let's stick to the last question from the chat. Can agentic AI potentially replace the critical thinking historically provided by QA role in testing of system under test? And can it potentially allow developers to perform testing, eliminating their biases dilemma that they usually have?
So yeah, I mean, again, it's a good question because definitely, agentic AI is changing the whole industry. I mean, look at software development itself, which developers are doing. AI is changing that first, and then when it comes to testing, obviously AI is a very good tool, and developers should 100% adopt it when it comes to testing because instead of wasting hours writing code, they could think around optimizing things or innovating things and let AI handle the repetitive part on their behalf, which is testing things. And I know sometimes there is always a psychological shift or difference between the thinking of a QA and thinking of a developer. That can be, I will say, comparatively you can say decreased because AI can give some recommendations as a QA to the developer which he might not be thinking while doing the application. So yeah, using such tools by the developer, definitely I will 100% recommend that.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Aslam. As a last few words from you to everyone who is listening to us, what do you want to wish them or invite them?
So yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and I will say that join our community, robonito.com. You can join it at community.robonito.com, and in this community you will get free access for Robonito. You can sign up, and we will provide you the access. You just have to send us an email that you were the part of this webinar for us, and we will make sure that you get the access. Apart from that, on the community, it's a happening place where we discuss recent developments on the Q industry. We help people with trending technologies and ultimately a good networking area for the QA people. Do join it.
Thank you, Aslam. Thank you,
Thank
Aslam,
you.
and thank you for this discussion. I think that everyone who've been listening to us have their own opinion on whether they are going or ready to use Agentic AI with their software testing or not. We are also inviting everyone to join Software Testing and AI Hub that we created for everyone who are interested in software testing and AI implementation within their processes. Follow us on LinkedIn, X, and YouTube channels. And I wish everyone a nice the rest of the day. And I hope to see everyone all again next episode of AI Testing Talks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I hope everyone will have a lot to think about following this webinar. Thanks a lot, Aslam, for your insights and introduction to Robonito. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you, Anna, for the
Bye,
opportunity.
everyone. Bye, everyone.